Hi, my name is Hank Willis Thomas. Welcome to the virtual experience of my exhibition, All Things Being Equal, at the Cincinnati Art Museum. One of the most profound things about having a survey exhibition at this point in my career is I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing. One of the things I've learned more recently is that in many ways, artists are psychic or prophetic, especially when we think about conceptual artists who are really trying to take an idea and make it real in the future so that people in the future will help bring new meaning to it and translate it across the world. The significance of the phrase all things being equal, implies that the ability to achieve true balance will always be delicate. When we think about the search and the quest for liberty and justice for all and true equality in our country, the work will never be complete. I Am a Man is really paying homage to the kind of old guard of the civil rights movement who opened the door for so many of us to even begin to think about what true integration and true equality and opportunity in this country could look like in the 20th century. When my cousin Sangha was murdered in the year 2000, I obviously was in shock and deep mourning. And for years, my family couldn't afford to buy him a headstone. And I realized if you aren't rich and you aren't famous, the only evidence that you actually lived was through the people whose lives you had an impact on. And in a way, many of us are walking memorials because we carry the spirits of our loved ones who've passed. The neon work Remember Me was really inspired directly from a postcard I found of a Black person who appeared to be a World War I veteran holding his rifle and wearing his Sunday best, and it said on the back of the postcard, "Remember me." And I think we do often forget about the legacy and the strength and the courage of rural African Americans in the early 20th century. Branded is a series of work which was part of my first major creative epiphany, which was the way in which advertising and popular culture really rely on prejudice as a means to sell products. That, especially in the context of marketing African Americans who are so undervalued in our society, and especially African American men, are very easily and often utilized as a tool to sell products. And in many ways, they become products themselves. And I was really investigating what it means to be the descendant of slaves who are still frequently publicly commodified bodies. My mother, my grandmother, and many of the women in my family were quilters. My aunt Yvonne, so many others really had this deep, rich connection to using old materials to make something that they could pass on to younger generations, and thinking also about the messages that our garments can carry, and especially during the Underground Railroad, where many of the ways in which messages were sent to escaping slaves was through the clothes and often the blankets that were left outside of the houses, the safe houses. I wanted to make a connection between the symbolic escape that so few African Americans have when they become a professional athlete to the escape that so few people were able to achieve from slavery. So far, I've done 2 Unbranded series. The first was Unbranded Reflections in Black by Corporate America from 1968 to 2008. The second was Unbranded A Century of White Women from 1915 to 2015. In each series, I chronicled the corporate notion of these identity structures through looking at real ads and removing all of the advertising information to reveal what's really being sold once you strip away the branding and the text, which are primarily the stereotypes about these people that exist at that time. I love seeing both Unbranded series in the same room because they really do complement each other. So many of the ads about Black people and about white women, the overarching majority of them were made by white men who were selling them products so that other white men could become wealthy. And there is a curious connection between the way in which these specific demographics were kind of framed in marginal ways and then given carrots to suggest that the products could be windows or opportunities or doorways to freedom and opportunity. I have been fascinated with history as a tool, as a gateway, as a passport into the future. And so through my art practice, I've often looked at historical objects that I found to be prescient and channeled that energy into artwork that I am still understanding. I've always been fascinated with the photograph as a historical document. I was inspired by the concept of the punctum that Roland Barthes put forth, which is that which pierces you in a photograph, the thing that really sticks out for you. I wanted to kind of take the thing that really stuck out for me, that had a real impact on me viscerally in a photograph, and make that real in sculpture. It's still a form of photographing to me because there's still a level of cropping. There's still this decisive moment, this tension that these sculptures all imply that I try to kind of embed into every work. The reason I've primarily used arms and hands in the Punctum series was because they are what we use to grasp, to hold what we value, what we think is important, what we need at a given moment in time. And sometimes those things are just outside of our grasp that we're reaching for, whether it be a ball, whether it be a goal, whether it be, and each of these works are using the hand gesture as a metaphor for our yearning desire to achieve. I miss being in the darkroom where we were using silver gelatin to bring latent images to the surface on photo paper. The process of making a mirror is somewhat like the process of making a photograph in the darkroom, and I wanted to kind of bring that 15th century or earlier alchemy into the 20th century medium of photography, and more specifically photojournalism. Looking at historical moments that also include a mirror puts the viewer in a really fascinating phenomenological relationship with what they're staring at. So when you're looking at one of the mirror works, you're both looking at a historical moment and looking at yourself and constantly trying to reconcile the past and the present. Black Righteous Space is a work that responds to sound and changes a red, black, and green rendering of the Confederate battle flag into a mandala whenever a sound intersects with it. I have really been thinking a lot about how our tone of voice, our words change and shape how we see reality, and been wanting to encourage myself and others to really think about the way in which so much of what we know about, especially Black liberation, is through tonal changes in our voice, through music, and through the alchemy of sound and the magic that occurs when we apply the tone of our voice perfectly to the tune of life. All of my work is about framing and context, and I really want viewers of my work to think about their relationship, their unique perspective of what they're looking at, and working with retroreflective material where we're most common seeing on stop signs and highway signs at nighttime that illuminate and orient us as we're traveling, it gives me a way to talk about what else is hidden in the dark of history. I like to use historical images, often lesser seen or lesser recognized, and make images pop into reality, if only for a brief moment, through viewers' flashing of a photograph and thinking back about a specific moment. And in a way, those works are really made more by the viewers and their cell phones or their flashlights than they are by me. And that's something that is so beautiful in that it becomes an active collaboration. I think words are images and images are words. And in my work, I have tried to use both photographic images by and large and text as pendulums where what they mean and what they're saying can switch right before our eyes depending on our understanding of who we are, where we are, and what the artist is trying to say. Much like the truth, my understanding of reality has changed with more information, and I hope that the work continues to walk that delicate balance between fact and fiction.